Professor Kuperman, thanks for being here today.
Pleasure.
Foreign policy has arisen in recent weeks in the presidential election. I'm wondering if you could talk about what you see as the differences between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney in the area of foreign policy.
I think there are differences generally and then a few specific. So on the general side, I would say that Mitt Romney has made clear that the U.S. should be a leader. The U.S. should take a leadership role in the world, whereas Barack Obama has had this attitude of what they call leading from behind. So if something blows up somewhere, the U.S. doesn't rush in and organize the international community to do something about it. It sort of stands back, lets another player, maybe a France, maybe a UK, someone like that, take the leadership role, and then only in the end would we come in if we're needed. And Mitt Romney thinks that that's sort of sacrificing U.S. leadership role, and that that's not good for the U.S. It's also not good for the rest of the world. Barack Obama would say, well, he's worried about going back to the George W. Bush policy, which was very militaristic and unilateral, and Obama thinks that got us into a lot of trouble in Iraq. So there are some real differences generally. Specifically, I would say Israel is a big difference, and that could have consequences in the election, in the sense that Mitt Romney has been 100% behind Israel and behind its leader, Benjamin Netanyahu, whereas Obama explicitly distanced himself a little, said that it's probably better for the Middle East peace process if the U.S. doesn't back Israel so strongly at the beginning of his administration. And then specifically with Netanyahu, there have been differences towards Iran's nuclear program, where Netanyahu has said we have to draw a red line, and if Iran crosses it, then we take all action, including military action, to stop it. And Obama has declined the request from Netanyahu to draw that red line.
How do you think these differences are playing out in the actual campaign? Are these issues important to voters? Do we expect them to be decisive in some way?
I think that, as in every election, foreign policy is not the top issue. The economy is always the top issue, and especially now when we've had this long, slow recovery from a deep recession. That being said, there's a percentage of voters for whom foreign policy is decisive in whom they choose to vote for, and there's a percentage of voters for whom specific issues in foreign policy are decisive. And one is the Israel issue that I mentioned. There are voters in America, some evangelical Christians, some Jewish voters, for whom Israel is the most important thing. Defending Israel is their number one priority from foreign policy, and therefore determines for whom they're going to vote. And those folks, I think, are more likely to vote for Romney than for Obama. So then you have to look at, well, which are the swing states? And for example, Florida is a swing state, and Florida has a large Jewish vote. And so, you know, you could imagine that that issue, Israel, might swing the vote in Florida, and then Florida might swing the Electoral College. So I would say it's not likely that foreign policy is going to determine who our next president is, but it's possible.
So as a foreign policy specialist, you're not completely bereft.
Even I don't vote only on foreign policy, and I don't know that anyone should. But it's been very interesting, especially with the Libya attack, the attack on our ambassador there that killed him and 3 other Americans. I think that's really vaulted foreign policy into the public debate, and I think we'll see it in the second and especially the third presidential debates. So no, I think that foreign policy is not irrelevant, and that makes me, as a professor at the LBJ school, very happy.